How's it going, everyone? Wayne the Unknown here, and welcome to another episode of Cosplay Contact, where we basically discuss everything in the cosplay community and conventions. Tonight, I'm joined here by AJ, also known as Solstice Cosplay, and Bob Greenway, known as what was it, One-Eyed Cosplay?
That's it.
Okay, just making sure I got it, making sure I got it right this time. So,
Yeah,
um,
previously it was on it.
So tonight's topic for another cosplay podcast panel is called Disability and Cosplay. So I mean, if you guys would like to begin, because I know when we tried to do this before, we were talking about what your disabilities were. So whoever would like to go first with their disabilities and everything.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Either or.
Okay.
Bob first this time.
Okay, I'll go. Well, as my chosen cosplay nickname suggests, I have a partially blind eye on the left side, um, as well as a long laundry list of other conditions, fairly minor conditions that we'll probably touch on here and there throughout the rest of the podcast. Um, that and um, some trouble with my knees are really the main things.
How long has that been going on for you?
Um, well, let's see. The eye really started giving me trouble in I would say about 15 to 17 years ago. Um, the actual injury that caused it happened in junior high school. Um, um, Guys on the autistic spectrum tend to be bully magnets. I was no exception. And one of them decided to just start beating on me and had a big old ring on his hand. And that right hand came into my left eye and did the damage. And I actually had forgotten about it until it started giving me trouble in my early to mid 40s.
And
And here I am. I just turned 60, and it has very limited vision, easily tires out, and when I can, I like to keep it covered up.
what kind of challenges have you faced with your daily disabilities while cosplaying?
Um, Not a whole lot so far. I mean, um, if I can wear shades of some sort to deal with my light sensitivity, it doesn't tire out as easily. So I can do two-eyed cosplays characters. That's all I've done so far, but I'm keeping my eye on a good long list of one-eyed characters. And when we get into um, ways of thinking towards approaching one's disability in cosplay, I can go through the whole laundry list and see what AJ thinks too.
They're looking for there. Same question for you, AJ. What kind of disabilities do you have, and what kind of challenges have you faced when it comes to cosplaying?
Um, well, I'm autistic. I have some mood disorders that impact me in to varying degrees. Um, I also most likely have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome,
What is that?
which affects my connective tissue, and it's primarily recognized in outside the medical community by the hyperextensibility of the joints, but it also comes in the form of dental problems, bone issues, arthritis later on in life, that sort of thing.
And what kind of challenges have you faced when cosplaying?
So it's a bit hard to pin down exactly how they impact my cosplay because they're harder to notice. But particularly when it comes to things like autism, uh, with with a lot of introspection, I can start to figure out what's going on. Like if I have a cosplay that requires constant adjustment, or if a piece of plastic is sticking into me or something, it can absolutely drive me up the wall, and I won't actually necessarily realize what's bothering me because I've blocked out the individual thing, but the sensation is still there and it's still grating on me, even if I don't know it. Um, Another thing that comes into play is, for example, my mind just went completely blank.
Hmm.
I'm doing great. Um, when it comes
Take
to
your time.
putting cosplays together, um, having having bipolar 2, I have to sort of understand that my current level of enthusiasm is not necessarily something that's going to be persistent throughout the project. So usually when I get really, really excited about something, I am ready to buy everything that I need for it. And then I have 2 weeks maximum to work on it. And then I'm I'm exhausted. I'm done. So what I'm learning to do is to figure out how to manage my projects so that um, I don't just spend a whole bunch of money on supplies and then have half-finished projects everywhere to show
Basic,
for it.
basically try to
Or
make the cosplay suitable for your needs.
yeah, or figure out how to do it in phases, that sort of thing. The other thing is that it usually leads to uh you talk about con crunch. The last con that I went to, I was up until about 3 a.m. and then more that the next morning trying to finish the uh the cosplay that I was making for a competition that day.
I imagine you were pretty tired after all that, especially with
I was very
because
sleepy.
especially with Con Crunch. I mean, I know a lot of people, are always tired when they're like working on their cosplays last minute. If you don't mind me asking, what cosplay was that for the competition that you were spending hours on
Um,
end?
that was Bond from Seven Deadly Sins.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that in the very first cosplay contact. It's still looking at it, it looks really impressive, but I imagine that you've spent a lot of hours trying to get everything, especially on the wig too.
The wig actually only took about 30 minutes. I would want to make it differently now, and I need to restyle it anyway, but yeah, the wig I definitely did the morning of because I knew that I could kind of phone it in on the wig and it would still look pretty good. Um, but it was the outfit itself because that was completely hand drafted, custom made by me from scratch.
That sounds impressive.
And it's built like a real outfit, except I would never wear that on the street.
Now to you, Bob. What challenges have you overcome when it's come to your disability and cosplaying?
Um, well, largely as far as in cosplaying, the thing that hits me in cosplaying are a couple of things that I think I mentioned in the autism panel are comorbid or also found in connection with autism, which are social anxiety and generalized anxiety disorders. Um, I get very worked up emotionally when something isn't working right, and as a self-taught sewer, that happens quite frequently. Um, I have so if something goes wrong in the sewing and I have to try and figure out what to do with it, I have to think about it for at least a couple of days. I have a coat that is waiting for sleeves to be sewn on it, sitting on my next to my sewing machine for I think the last 2 weeks because the tops of the sleeves are bigger than the openings, and I'm not sure what to do with that. But I'm sure it'll come to me. But And I want to have that particular costume ready for Rose City Comic Con this year, because that's probably the only costume I will ever make a high enough percentage of myself that I could enter it in a costume contest. Most everything else I either buy or collect some modification.
Mind sharing what that
Um,
cosplay is going to be?
um, the evil midnight bomber, what bombs at midnight,
Oh, from
from the
Batman?
animated Tick. No, the animated
Oh,
from the Tick, the animated Tick show, as voiced
nice.
by Maurice LaMarche. So he said to me, he said, "You want to be a bad guy?" I said, "Yeah, baby, I want to be bad." I said, "Can't have fake ponies. I'm making gravy without the lumps." That guy. And
Um,
and so, and I already have the helmet and the goggles, and I have to finish making the coat and then turn my attention to the tights.
well, I'm sure all of us and those who are at Rose City are looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'll get a lot of people saying, "I want to," say they want a picture, and others will just look at me and say, "Boom, baby, boom," or whatever.
Same question for you, AJ. What are some of the challenges you've overcome with disability and cosplaying?
Um, so one of the things that I've had to overcome fairly immediately is recognizing when I'm actually hungry or thirsty or in pain. Um, because with with autism sometimes comes a general unawareness of what one's own body is doing, and that I'm not sure if that's something brought on by years of masking or if it's something that's actually typical. I mean, at this point, how
It's
can you tell?
it is a
But
standard thing. It is a standard thing. I've read
yeah,
extensively on the topic. Yeah, I wet the bed until I was 8.
yeah. Um, and so if if I'm hungry or if I haven't had water for 5 hours, or sometimes I'll have a headache for hours and not even realize it. Actually recognizing those things in a chaotic environment like con is hugely important, um, as I'm sure that you can imagine. Um, and so just like going through a laundry list of things to check on and like making sure that I pause for a moment and check in with myself. Um, it's not foolproof, and a con buddy definitely helps because if they realize they're hungry, then I'm probably hungry too.
Yeah, something that
Um,
was definitely
but
talked in
those,
the convention safety and awareness podcast.
yeah, but that can be huge, because if you're miserable at con, then what's your experience like, honestly?
I mean, from my experience, I know if I'm like miserable, and I can't say this for everyone, but I know if someone's miserable at con, I know their first reactions like if they're miserable, their first reaction is like, okay, I got to get out of here and calm down. And I know what when people have disabilities or cons, it's a lot more difficult for them to try to get out and
Mhm. And my coping ability goes down when those other things come into play. So I'll freeze. I won't want to go anywhere. Um, so I'll just stop and start to shut down. Um, that's not fun for me. That's not fun for the people I'm with. That's not fun for strangers around me who get concerned. Um, so that's a big thing. Um, Yeah, and another thing that I'm thinking about is getting some noise reducing earplugs. They're special ones that allow certain kinds of noise through, like when people talk directly to you, but they block out a lot of background noise because that's another thing that tends to get to me a lot. Um,
I've heard
yeah,
of those.
and then time blindness. I I I have a lot of trouble with keeping track of time. So pretty much no matter what, I will incorporate a watch into my cosplay, even if it's not officially part of my cosplay, just so that I can actually check the time regularly, because I will not have any idea whether 10 minutes have passed or an hour has passed.
Same here. Same with me. I always have a watch on me, and if I can't wear a watch, for occasions where I can't wear a watch, I bought a pocket watch.
That always comes in handy.
Yeah. You never know what's going to come in handy, and I actually have a couple of costumes that I will be using that for in the future.
Very nice. Now, on to one topic. It kind of has to deal with the whole gatekeeping and cosplay thing. I know this is like a double-edged topic. What are your thoughts on non-disabled people cosplaying as disabled characters? Starting with AJ.
In general, I am not certain how qualified I am to speak on that. Um, Similar, yeah, it's just I don't have a visible physical um disability. And so I'm not sure if I have a right to comment on people cosplaying. Like there are a lot of characters that are missing limbs. I don't know how uh actual amputees feel about those. As far as autistic characters go, I cannot think of a canon autistic character that I would actually want to cosplay because so many of the representations are so bad. Um, but as for autistic coded, um, I I don't think I would have a problem with that because they're just that. They're only coded.
Uh,
They're they're not stated to be neurodiverse or neurotypical.
what is autistic coded? I've never heard of that before.
So coding is a term that has been picked up by certain underrepresented groups like uh, neurodiverse groups or LGBTQ plus groups, that it's a way to describe that a person is very easily read as having a certain characteristic, but it's not ever explicitly stated.
In the case of autism, that would be like Sheldon Cooper or Temperance Brennan on television, for example.
I'm not familiar with the second one. I would say that Sheldon Cooper is probably explicitly autistic, given how heavy-handed the representation
Mhm.
is. Um, I think something more subtle would be like gosh, I haven't watched this one, but a lot of a lot of people who have watched Death Note read the character L as autistic and asexual.
I kind of actually have seen that a bit. I've noticed it.
Yeah,
Didn't notice it
but
at
it's never
first.
There
actually
are
stated.
No, no, it's never stated. Same
there are
question.
also characters who are not stated in the show but have been stated behind the scenes, such as um, oh, I forgot the name already of the character that I mentioned last time from Criminal Minds.
Spencer Reed.
Matthew Gray Goulet. Spencer Reed, yeah. He and Entrapped on She-Ra have been explicitly stated by the creators and the people behind the scenes as being on the spectrum, but haven't. But it's never said on the show. Um, but yeah, that would. I'm not sure whether that would fall on that. As for myself, on that, I really don't feel any much more qualified than AJ as far as addressing non-disabled, portraying disabled, because my big visible disability is my eye. I can do without it, and I don't see any problem with somebody, a guy with two healthy eyes cosplaying Nick Fury or somebody else like that.
Now, about your eye,
So
how often does it hurt? Like, does it ever hurt at all on occasion when you're
uh,
cosplaying?
it hasn't yet while I was cosplaying, and of course we're recording this just like 2.5 weeks after Washington State Summer Con, um, where um, I got to wear shades all 3 days. I wore it despite the last day because that one being my Richard Castle costume, and I only took it off to take a couple pictures.
Which is a really good cosplay, by the way.
Um, oh, thank you. But day one was Dr. Midnight, and my second day I mostly dressed as myself with a button that said, "Don't look at me, I'm cosplaying the Invisible Man." So those two, already had the shades worked into it. I didn't have much problem with that, and I haven't in the general. Day to day, the eye does get to hurting if it gets too much strain, but how much that happens um, can depend, can vary quite a bit from one day to the next. I can go all day without the patch. And there are days where I haven't opened my eyes in the morning yet, and it's just going, uh-uh.
They don't want to
So
open.
it's highly variable. Yeah, it will open, but it says put the patch on now. Hmm.
Now,
Um,
um,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
sorry, I didn't mean to. I got
I
distracted.
was just grunting. That's all.
um, Starting with AJ, any advice you want to give for disabled cosplayers, whether it be a physical or mental disability? Because I know we didn't touch it a
Um,
whole lot when the last on the autism one, so I figured if you have any advice, feel free to.
yeah, so um, like I said, I don't have a lot of firsthand experience when it comes to like mobility impairment and that sort of disability, but I think one of the first things to do is see how much you can find out about the con venue. Um, See where are the elevators, where are the stairs, what are, I mean, the Oregon Convention Center has a tunnel underneath one of the lower levels that makes the bottom section more accessible if you're coming from the parking garage.
Well,
Um,
that's good to know.
where are, yeah, yeah, it's kind of cool. Um, where are the areas where you can sit? Um, what's the food situation? Do you have an allergy? If you do, I mean, you probably already have plans to accommodate for that, but it's still a good thing to keep in mind. Um, and by that token, do you have your rescue medication? Do you have your maintenance medication and things that you may not need in your regular life, but that can come into play in stressful situations? Um, do you have a con buddy? It gets loud, it gets chaotic, it's crowded. When you're at con, it's a good idea to have someone with you, at least one person who knows some of your cues and who knows to check in with you about certain things. I have I have seen someone have a panic attack at a dance because it was just way too loud and they were alone and no one knew what was happening. And that that shouldn't have to happen.
No, I completely agree. I feel like 'cause I know some people they'll have like a lanyard or something, and I'll have like what their disabilities are. So if like someone comes up to ask, they can like pull out their card and say, this is what they have and everything.
Yeah. And some people are finding those to be very useful. Personally, I can become nonverbal in very specific situations, and I've been exploring the possibility of having like cards that I can use to communicate certain pre-specified phrases. A lot of the ones that I've found are more geared toward children, unfortunately. But something like that would be useful to have if I don't have anyone with me, or even if I do and they're not entirely sure what to do.
Especially at a con, would definitely. I believe stuff like that would come in handy. And you are right. They have one more. They have it's more towards geared kids, but also adults. Also, I feel like, you know, again, I would not know. I'm not gonna say I do know, but I feel like something like that, especially for adults who go to con more than kids do, or even like young adults, like teenagers, something like that would come in handy.
Yeah, and yeah, I wish there were more products geared toward autistic adults, because that is an ongoing issue where people seem to think autism disappears at 18.
It doesn't.
Um,
It does not.
but it does not. It's a
Nope.
lifelong thing.
I can
I'm
It's
say
a
that.
60.
neurotype.
I can say that with experience. I can
Um,
say
I
that.
just turned 60.
um, but just to think about contingency plans. Maybe the cards won't work for you, but maybe maybe you learn a little bit of sign language with your con buddy to help you through that. Maybe you develop signals if you can't do any sort of language beyond that. Just to just to plan ahead. If you know what's happening, then it'll be easier to reduce the load and to know where to go if you need one. Um, find the quiet spot at con. A lot of places are having a designated quiet spot, like the manga libraries, or like an actual quiet room. That would be a good place to go.
All right.
Bring something to distract yourself. Just find out what you will need if things go south, and make sure you can use them if at all possible.
I agree. Um, Same question for you, Bob. Any advice you like to give on those who have both, either a mental or physical disability when it comes to going to conventions and cosplaying?
A lot of what I would have to say on that echoes what AJ was talking about. One, prepare to self-accommodate. Um, I always keep a patch or two in my pocket, um, in case I need it, whether it goes with the cosplay or not. Um, had a couple that actually would have gone nicely, fit in nicely with the Richard Castle cosplay if I'd needed it. But so far, the two occasions I've worn that, I didn't need it. Um, and I'm very glad I didn't need it with the Dr. Midnight cosplay, because it would have been a heck of a thing to get that hood off uh, and put the patch on and all that. But the shades helped quite a bit. I keep my shades with me. Um, and also to scope out the place as well as you can. Like AJ was saying, find what you need in the way of where the drinking fountains are, where the restrooms are, where the quiet room is, where elevators and escalators are, whatever it is that addresses whatever disability you're having. The one thing I think that AJ didn't mention that is really good for any autistic person or anybody with an anxiety related disorder is plan it ahead and keep yourself in the mindset of where you're going. There's going to be a lot of ruckus and chaos and crowds, and you can expect that. And so the chaos is what's expected, and everything's going. And as long as nothing goes bad wrong, then you're fine. Um, I can give as an example on that the trip that I just had to Washington State SummerCon, where this was in two buildings, so I knew I'd have to go outside a lot. That's why I had my shades on at all times. Um, there was about a half-mile walk from the hotel where I was staying at. I'm good with walking a long distance. I knew there was going to be somewhat of a crowd, probably not as much as at Rose City. Um, and I went around and I got to meet Aero Senpai in person. and uh, got to do a lot of the other fun stuff that I expected to be there, and got a couple of bonus things that I wasn't expecting, and I had a great time right up until uh, the cab driver who was supposed to take me to the train station went to the wrong city, and I ended up having to spend an extra night over, and just that one extra night overnight was about twice as stressful as the whole trip, as the whole rest of the trip before it, just because it came in unexpectedly. So expect, expect the chaos that is going on.
I'm gonna second that. I did forget to mention that, but being in that mindset of expecting that there will be surprises. Um, for me, it's a lot more stressful to be in that mindset, but it does help severely reduce the impact of those surprises on my ability to cope.
Um, I wanted to touch up about conventions real quick. I am glad to see more bigger conventions have more accessibility for disabled people. Like you guys were talking about, like escalators and elevators. Now, the conventions that you're talking about, their bathrooms, are they also wheelchair accessible? Because I know there's this. I imagine there's gonna be like some con attendees that are, in a wheelchair or crutches or some kind of mobility device.
I have yet to see any restrooms at any large venue of any sort that doesn't have some level of handicap accessibility. Certainly, the convention center and the Washington State Fairgrounds had that feature.
Oh, they did.
Yeah,
Oh, well, that's good to know. But trying to think of something else to add on. Real quick.
I somehow managed to only have to use the restrooms once while I was at the fairgrounds. So
Sounds
um,
like you weren't drinking enough water.
I was drinking plenty of fluid. I was drinking had like two lemonades going down each day. Um, but yeah, I'm a man 60 years old and I have a large prostate. So yeah, don't stand in my way when I'm heading to the restroom.
I figured, and I'm sure you guys agree with this, may have to be split into two parts. If hopefully I can get more guests who can and I really appreciate you guys coming on to continue talking about you know mental disabilities and cosplay and also the physical disabilities. And to those who are listening, and same to you, if you know anyone, any cosplayer that has either a mental or physical disability and would like to come on and talk about their experience, feel free to send them my way. Because I'm sure I would like to hear about their challenges and the stuff they've overcome throughout the years of cosplaying.
Yeah, and since this is going to be audio only, it might actually be easy to tell, but we're not a very diverse group in terms of our disability and our race, and I know that race definitely impacts how someone experiences their disabilities.
Oh,
So um,
most definitely.
we we could we could definitely stand to benefit from more racial diversity on this topic as well.
And yeah, that's like I said, that's the whole point of these podcasts is everyone's experience, whether it be plus size cosplaying, people of color cosplaying, you know any form of cosplaying. If you have an experience or story you would like to share, feel free to comment or find on Instagram, and I'll make sure to put the link to your guys' Instagram just in case someone wants to. If you have a friend or something who's been experienced this kind of stuff, feel free to let them know about this because I'm sure they would love to express their opinion on this topic as well.
I'd love to hear from all sorts of corners and senior citizen cosplay as well because they got a little old people out here.
Before we end this, anything else you guys like to add real quick, starting with AJ?
Um, Well, I've tried to make this clear, but I do want to say it explicitly. We are two people on a panel, and we do not represent the entirety of the experience of disabled people. And please, in no way assume that we do. We're only talking about our own experiences and things that we've learned.
Yeah,
So
we're the only people on the panel because we're the ones who showed up, basically.
And again, shout out to the others who try to come on here. Shout out to TJ and shout out to Iro Senpai who try to make it.
we miss you.
Yeah.
Until next time, everyone. I'm Wayne the Unknown, joined here by AJ and Bob. Thank you for
Good night,
listening.
everybody.
Thank you for listening, and until next time, thank you for watching.